Won't miss seeing you every day.
So we decided a few weeks ago, or actually probably 6 weeks ago now, that we were going to put on a cocktail event. It's been a long time since we were able to stand up in public in front of a lot of our guests, and I wanted to thank my team for the last few years. We've had a really tough few years post-COVID and Royal Commission, so it's lovely to see so many of you here tonight. We've also got some clients that have been with us for 30 years now, and I know a few of those clients are here tonight. So Hudson started back in '92, and we have some clients who've been with us for that long. We have some third generation families also that are here, so grandparents, children and grandchildren now that are coming through the ranks. So it's been a really big few years. The second reason was to highlight what advisors actually do. I think it's not as clear cut as it is with an accountant or a lawyer, what advisors do. And it's not just investment allocation that we take care of. It's a whole host of things. Everybody in this room could benefit from a plan. It's for clients who are just starting out, it might be defining choices and looking at a pathway, to your first house. For clients who've got a mortgage and kids, it might be looking at trade-offs, looking at different education to know that if you go on that holiday to Japan or you buy something that you don't need, what you're trading for that. And for clients who have money and assets, it's about asset protection and it's about minimising your tax. So there's not one person in this room who wouldn't benefit from a plan. Advisors also are at the forefront of changes in legislation. So an example of that would be the income tax cuts that are coming next year. So if you're self-employed, we might look at holding some of your income off for this financial year so that next financial year, you've got the lower tax rate. So there's a whole lot of strategies that go into planning, and it might be that you have a plan without a product, or you might have a product without a plan. You might just want to speak to somebody to find out if you're on the right path. You might just want to know if your super's performing well. So there's many facets of an advisor, and we cross over a lot with accounting and estate planning, who I'll get up soon on the couch. Before I introduce my first couch, I also want to address all the young people in the room tonight, because we've got a lot of young people here tonight. And you guys have the greatest gift of all, and that is time. You have time to invest, you have time to make mistakes, you have time to ride out volatility. And if there's one thing I can get you to take away tonight, it's that, actually an example would be, if you invested $100 a month into the share market, assume an index fund, in America, and you started that at the age of 25, by the time you were 65, you would have $1 million. Now, if you waited just 10 years and started that at 35, you would only have $350,000. So the effect of compounding is huge, and it's something that every young person in this room should be aware of. There's also a lot of tax cuts for low-income earners. So while you're at uni and you're not earning a lot of money, if you contribute $1,000 to your super, the government will put $500 in. So there's a lot of really, small tweaks that you can make when you're just starting out. But if there's one thing I can get you to take away tonight, that is make the best use of your time. Don't forget about super, $50 a month. Start up an investment account, you'll be so grateful. The other thing I want to talk about tonight with young people is saving for a house. It's very hard to get into the housing market. And later on tonight, we've got my finance team coming up, and they'll talk a little bit about some of the new innovations for clients that don't have, or especially the young people that don't have a house yet. But basically, making money is easy. You spend less than you earn, you give yourself time, and you value what you purchase. Warren Buffett, I know he's famously frugal, but he still lives in his same family home 60 years later. And Bill Gates, he doesn't fly first class because he sees no value in it. It doesn't get there any faster. It's the same plane, he doesn't value it. So value what you purchase. Okay, I tend to talk a lot. So Mel is going to keep me on track tonight. I just want to invite Matt Paul up. Where's Matty? Matt Paul. Matt Paul has been working with me at Hudson. I started at Hudson at the end of 2000. Matt's been there since 1999. He's my ambassador of Kwan, for anyone who knows the movie. Matty's been with us for so long. I think everybody in this room will have spoken to Matt at some time. And we've got some old relics, actually. Back in 92 when we started, we've got videotapes and the first class ticket book for some of our older clients here, all on the back if you want to have a trip down Relic Lane. We also used to hand out, back in the 90s, actually, Matt, I'm going to let you take this.
Oh, sure. Just about the dollar coins? Yeah. How many people remember getting a dollar coin with a, this is your first dollar, you're going to invest with it? Yeah, that's going back quite a while. So how much have you made since then? Just joking. Yes, like Juanita said, I've been with the Hudson for many, many years. When I first moved to Brisbane, I don't know if you've got a few country people here, but when you're in the country, people would drive past on the hand on the wheel and they'd put their finger up, to give a wave back. When I first got to Brisbane, I was actually doing that and people were actually waving back to me. So it was like a big country town. So it has changed over the last 24 years into a beautiful city, I might add, so which is awesome. What else can I say? Hudson's been great to me for the last... Oh, the jar. That's right, we're going to do the jar. Where is the jar? Hey, Heather.
You're supposed to bring the jar.
Yeah, I know. Hey, Heather.
Hey, Doreen.
Hey, Doreen, can you get Heather to bring that jar up for me? Maybe a sec, sorry. And we're going to announce who's got the closest...
No.
Oh, you're not?
No.
What do you tell me?
Oh my God. Okay, Matt was supposed to say we're paying homage to the past. We've got a jar of $1 coins. The closest guest gets the entire jar of $1 coins. Mick's daughter's already tried to talk me into telling Mick the amount of coins that are in there. She's after that jar, Mick. There we go. If you can guess those dollar coins, this is a montage to the past.
Yeah, montage to the dollar coin.
To the dollar coin.
Yeah. So hopefully, most people got it down, I think, so
Yep.
we'll have a winner by then.
Draw it later.
Okay.
Tonight we've got Rainforest Rescue here as well. Hudson have been in a full synergy with my crew over there from Byron Bay tonight. They'll do a quick talk later. I love these guys. We give part of our profits, so everybody who invests with Hudson has some part in what we do with Rainforest Rescue. They do amazing work saving rainforests. We'll bring them up later. But they have created part of my theme for the night, and that is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So we want everyone to plant a tree with us today so that you all can sit in the shade in the future. That's my homage to Rainforest Rescue, but they will come up later. Okay, now I will introduce my first couch. So we've got Mikhail Lansmore, 20 years at Hudson, Ivan Fletcher, 19 years at Hudson, and I'd like to invite Michael Fury up. He is the Managing Director of Delta Research and part of the Hudson Investment Committee. And Alistair Healy, who is the Managing Director of Gilt Investments, Bond Specialist, Fixed Interest Extraordinaire. Now I'm going to start with Alistair tonight actually because bonds have had a shocker. The 2022 was awful for the bond market. I read somewhere the other day, Alistair, was the greatest bond bear market in history, they're saying. Now, some use bonds to predict where the economy might be heading, so I thought it'd be really great to get Alistair in the spotlight tonight and have him give us his thoughts on what might be happening in the economy.
No worries. Thank you for throwing me in the deep end. I guess the fixed income market for me, we deal with clients directly, so we don't talk to funds and anything like that. So we've got to keep an eye on where the yield curve goes. And I'm old school. For me, the yield curve tells you everything. And pretty much the market starts with the interest rates and then it affects the other asset classes. So for me, whilst the fixed income market has had a bad run, but that's only a bad run for those people who bought bonds when they were way too low and artificially put down there by the governments. So, yes, if you buy a bond at 1% and it goes to 10%, you're going to have a shocker. But if you go the other way, or if you stood your ground and stayed short, and you basically had to look around what was going on in the world, then you would have probably been more inclined to stay short. So I know fund managers have always got to, and I'm not a fund manager, but I guess fund managers have always got to be 100% invested, and they're constantly looking to manage their book. Whereas from my position, if someone rang me and said, you know, should I buy a bond a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I would have just talked them out of it in 2 seconds. So to me, it was reasonably clear and obvious that rates, it was never going to stay there, because interest rates, cash rate in Australia at 0.1%, you know, is the lowest it's ever been historically, full stop. So there's only one way it's going to go, is up. So it was pretty clear and obvious, I thought. But so for me, it definitely has been bad for some people who have gone long. There was a 100-year bond that was issued, or a number of 100-year bonds that were issued 2 years ago, and I think they're now trading at about $2 because they were issued at 4%, I think, for 100 years. So a lot of people, I guess, it comes down to what you think interest rates are going to do at the time. So you sit there, and the market had the view that rates might stay down for a while because there was a lot of problems. If you looked at the European market, 30-year bonds were trading at minus 0.2, which was unheard of in the market. Now, you know, a lot of these things were frontier stuff. It was a, I guess, a combination of two things. One, the government's trying to force people to invest and start putting money into equities maybe, or doing projects and getting things going, so they kept pushing rates down. But the more they pushed the rates down, I think the market became a bit of a catch-22. People were then worried about what was going to happen in the market. So they kept buying bonds because they wanted to secure their money and tuck it away for, you know, for safety. So even though, you know, a negative bond sounds crazy, and it is crazy, but I guess people were prepared to pay for the sake of holding a government bond, because at the time it could have gone, you know, really bad. So I think people were just looking to put it into safety, which was AAA. So for me, you know, the interest rates in the market, you know, the interest rates are the price for money. If there's not much money around, the price will go up. If there's heaps of money around, the price will go down. It's as simple as that. So if the government, the real problem was the government interfering it with ulterior motives, and then everyone just believed the government and believed, you know, the Reserve Bank, so they all thought that it was going to stay down there forever. And if you looked at, you know, the yield curves, it almost looked like it was going to stay down forever, and they were issuing 100-year bonds. But, you know, at 0.1% cash rate, that was never going to stay there in Australia as well. So it's proven the case, so it's back up.
Alistair, do you think that rates will go up Tuesday, Melbourne Cup? They heading up?
Absolutely, I reckon they're going to go. I mean, you know, I'm probably a bear with a sore head a little bit. I think the elephant in the room here is inflation, and I'm you know, I was, I guess, some of the young bucks' ages when Paul Keating was in power here in Australia, and he freed up the market and introduced a lot of banks. If you go back to that period of time, I think we had an inflation rate of around about 8%. And if anyone can remember what the cash rate was when yes, it was 18%. So, you know, the logic was that you know, interest rates had to be higher than inflation. If you want to get control of inflation, you've got to have interest rates higher than inflation to bring it down. So if you look at it at the moment, our inflation rate got as high as 7.8% just recently, and we've pushed the rates up way up to 4.1. So to me, I look at that as old school, someone who went through the Keating days, and Keating had a massive problem trying to get control of inflation. They couldn't do it. The Banana Republic, you know, this is the recession we had to have, was back then, because they couldn't get inflation down. Inflation would go up, and they'd push rates up above inflation and slow the whole economy down. Rates would come down for a little while, and then he'd say, right, we've got it under control, we'll bring rates down. As soon as he brought rates down, inflation would take off again. And that went on for a number of years. So for me, I look at what's happening now, and I think we're exactly in that position again. We all think inflation's under control. Inflation's 5.4, I think, at the moment, and our cash rate's 4.1. If you look around the world, if you go back to prior to 2008, rating, you would think we'd pay the same rate. We had to pay 1.5% over their rate in order to attract money our way. So at the moment we're 1.4 under theirs. So ours is 4.1 and the American rate is 5.5. So they're the biggest economy in the world and we're sitting here at 4.1. Our debt is $1 trillion or, you know, rough and dirty around that level. If you go back to when Kevin Rudd got in, we had $90 billion worth of debt. We've now got $1 trillion. I mean, that's equivalent to, you know, your mortgage going from $90,000 to $1 million. So for me, of that $1 trillion that we've got, about 40% of it's borrowed from overseas. If we don't dovetail our of the rest of the world saying, look, we love you like a brother or a sister, your rates nowhere near as good as it should be. The risk we've now got, we're not getting the returns we should be getting. So an inflation rate of 8, then that period we made those the Aussie dollar got down to 49 cents US. And the reason why it got down to 49 cents US is money. As you see the dollar going down, that's because all the offshore investors are pulling their money out. And so we really have to be mindful of that. And you know, the government has to make sure that we don't get a little bit too complacent and, you know, let things run a bit and don't worry about it. Because if the Aussie, we saw it just recently, I don't know if people watch the currencies as much, but the Aussie dollar got down to 62, it dipped into the 62 cents and then went back to 64 cents. And for me, there's a number of reasons for that. I think it started to trickle down because of the difference in rates, I would say. And you can never prove this. This is sort of, you just got to watch it, anecdotal sort of evidence. And it floated out and then it stopped and then came back. One of the other things that you should all keep in mind is there's a thing called term funding facility that the Reserve Bank put in place for all the banks. The banks, during COVID, they didn't want any of the banks to get into trouble. So during COVID, they provided this funding. This term funding facility allowed the banks to borrow up to 2% of their balance sheet. If they were going to borrow the money, they had to borrow it for 3 years, and the rate they borrowed it at was 0.1. Well, all that money has to be repaid by June. So at the moment, a lot of banks are borrowing money from overseas because they know if they borrow it here domestically, it'll push rates up. So they're borrowing it overseas and then bringing it back, which was part of the reason why the Aussie dollar went from 60, I think, they won't tell me, but for me, the reading between the lines, I think the 62 went back up to 64 cents because the major banks, like the Commonwealth Bank's got to borrow about $60 billion to repay the Reserve Bank by June next year. So I think that some of that money's coming in, which then clouds the whole issue with regards to our interest rates relative to the rest of the world. Okay, thanks, Michael. Michael sits on the investment committee at Hudson. So there's Michael, Ivan, myself, Melissa, who's an advisor at Hudson, and Isaac, who will be an advisor next year. Isaac's just done BAFE and he's a graduate working through with us now, and he's formed a very big part of the committee. But Michael is a fairly new addition to Hudson in the last 6 months. We've got Michael on board. Michael and Ivan, Mel and Isaac and myself, we have a lot of robust discussions around the economy, talking about things like bonds, Aussie dollar, unemployment, talking about if Trump gets re-elected next year, what's happening in China. All of these things affect our markets. And then Michael sits with us and we talk about mitigating the risk, talk about opportunities that might come on. Michael, I'm going to handball this to you to talk a little bit about your thoughts on the economy and also how you add value to investment committees.
Okay, so we'll start with our thoughts on the economy. Okay, so thoughts on the economy. Well, I guess from my perspective, I think the primary driver, I guess, around our economy and the rest of the world, if you like, is definitely the American economy. Okay, that is one of our biggest trading partners. Obviously, China's very important to Australia as well, and so in terms of our economy, there's quite a few interesting things going on at the moment that I won't go into too much detail. Okay, so I'll touch on that yield curve. So what is a yield curve anyway? Okay, so it's really what those interest rates are for different terms, right? So we know our cash rate in Australia is 4.1. Our, say, 1 or 2 year term deposit that a government pays is around that. It's around sort of 4.1, 4.2, give or take. But a 10-year term deposit that a government pays is around, it was up near 5%, not only last week, and it sort of dropped a little bit, okay? So that's sort of showing two things, right? With the 1 year around 4.1 and the longer term up around 4.7, 4.8%. Short term, that's showing that rates are probably going to stay where they're at for a little while, okay? That's pretty much the market saying rates are not going to move, they're going to stay high. So the current theme that we're facing in Australia is higher for longer, okay? Now, the reason why rates have gone up, as Alistair's already mentioned, it's about combating inflation, okay? There was a belief, certainly in the USA, and there probably still is a bit to a degree, that rates were going to come down, okay? And there was a bit of that belief in Australia as well. Now the belief is that rates are higher for longer. So that sort of relates to inflation's going to stay higher for longer as well. And I'm on the same page as Alistair insofar. I do believe the Reserve Bank is going to put up rates next week. The market's currently a 50-50 bet. Okay, you go on the website, you look at the ASX rate tracker, they're saying 50% chance that rates are going to go up next week. I think it's going to go up next week because the inflation issue we've got in Australia at the moment is very Australian. Okay, we've got services inflation that's the highest it's been since 2001, and we've got a whole a lot of the other inflation drivers are all sort of quite local. So the Reserve Bank has to battle that inflation and put rates up. Now, what is the consequence of putting rates up? And this happens in America as well, right? The reason why Reserve Bank or central banks put up rates is to intentionally slow the economy. So we've got a pretty good economy at the moment. So I tend to think that the Reserve Bank's pretty focused on slowing the economy. The fact that those 10-year bonds are a little bit higher is a slight positive around the Australian economy, and because it's higher, that's sort of suggesting that, you know, we've got a fragile economy, but there's no sort of signs of recession yet. In America, the 10-year rate is much, much lower than the cash rate and say the 1 year rate. 1 year rate, cash rate's 5.5%, give or take. The 10-year is around 4.6%. It's much lower. That's a signal that their economy could well head to recession. Every time, I think in the last 40 years, that relationship's been, there has been a recession within a couple of years in America. If that happens, that will impact us as well. And so that fragility of our economy is sort of where we're at the moment.
And we talk about that in the investment committee meetings, and we put together asset allocations based on different risk profiles. I'm one end of the aggressive risk profile. I want uranium and
You are, yeah. You are.
gearing.
Yes.
I need Michael. Michael is conservative and is very good for me. So
That
is
is
Melissa.
true.
It's
That is
actually, yeah. So we have these great discussions now for different age brackets, obviously. Accumulators, which would be anywhere up to about the age of 55. We would try and educate you to be a little bit more aggressive because you've got that time to ride out volatility. Then you've got your pre-retiree, the transitioning, and then of course retirement. Retirement planning is one area where I think everybody needs an advisor. There's innovative products that are always coming to the market. At the moment, there's some really great annuity products. So products are changing, but also the legislation changes. And so with pre-retirees, it's important to plan a few years out. It's to do with planning on the sale of some of your assets, making sure that you're maximising what you put into super each year. But our asset allocations, our weightings change. And in the investment committee, we obviously have different weightings for different risk profiles. I'm going to ask Ivan tonight. Ivan has a lot of retired clients. I wouldn't say it's all he has, but a large part of your clients. So yeah. So Ivan, what's the secret to a healthy and happy retirement?
What's the secret to a healthy retirement? Look, I might stand up. I find it a bit easier to talk standing. Look, it's a great question, and I'm glad you asked, Juanita, because otherwise the next 10 minutes wouldn't work. But it's the age-old question is, you know, what makes for a great, healthy and happy long retirement? Now, healthy, I'm not a doctor. I can't help you with the medical side of things, okay? But long and a happy healthy, it is about doing what we love and what we want, okay? And no one else can help us decide on what that is. And to me, as simple as it is, the concept I always learnt from my father, do the simple things first, Ivan. The simple things is learning you and knowing what you want, okay? And the best demonstration I can give of that is a fable about a fisherman from a Mexican village. So the fisherman from his Mexican village, he's coming home with his morning daily catch, and just so happens, American tourist stumbles across, can't help himself, sees the catch. He says, I see you've got a great catch of fish there. He said, do you mind if I ask how long it took you to catch those fish? And the Mexican villager looks up a little bit stunned. He says, not very long. That wasn't enough for the American tourist. He says, well, why didn't you go out for longer and catch more fish, make more money? The Mexican villager looks back at him and he says, well, this small catch is sufficient to take care of my needs and the needs of my family. That wasn't enough for the American tourist. The American tourist says, look, I've got an MBA from Harvard and I can help you. And before the local villager could interrupt him and say no thanks, he started. He said, first, you've got to go out for longer and catch more fish, all right? And when you catch more fish, you're going to make more money. And when you make more money, you're going to be able to buy a bigger boat. And if you can buy a bigger boat, you're going to catch more fish. And you're going to make more money. And this goes on, and he says, and then you'll get a second boat and a third boat, and pretty soon you'll have a whole fleet of fishing trawlers. And the Mexican villager, a little stunned, but also a little interested, says, and then what? And the American tourist says, well then, he says, you can cut out the market man and the middleman, you can start negotiating with the fish factories yourself, you could create your own fish factory. Then you'll be able to build your whole empire and be able to move it into Mexico City. Or maybe Los Angeles, maybe even the Big Apple in New York. And the Mexican villager looks up, a little frightened, but still a little interested. He says, how long will that take? And the American tourist says, 20 to 25 years. The Mexican villager is still a little bit interested. And he says, and then what? And he says, well, the tourist says, what do you do with the rest of your time? You're only out here till 10 o'clock in the morning. And the Mexican villager looks up with a big smile on his face and he says, he said, I sleep a little late. I catch a little fish. I play with the children. I have a siesta with the wife in the afternoon. Nudge, nudge, siesta. And then in the evening, I come back into the village and I drink with my friends. I play my guitar, we sing some songs and we play music. And the tourist, he turns around to the American and he says, so what happens next if I go to New York? And the American tourist, he says, well then, he said, this is where it gets really exciting. He said, your company grows so big, you have such a big empire, you're controlling it from New York. And then he said, you list your company on the stock exchange and you sell all the shares and you make millions and millions of dollars. Millions of dollars, you'd be a very rich man. The Mexican, still a little stunned, still a little interested, and he says, and then what? And the American tourist says, then you can retire. So you can move back to the coastal village, you can sleep late, you can do some fishing, play with your children, have a siesta with your wife, nudge, nudge, and in the evening, go into town and play music and drink and enjoy your friends. So the moral of this story is it was not the American tourist that was teaching the Mexican. It was the Mexican teaching the American tourist. Know what you want. You could already be there. In this case, the Mexican villager was already living the life that he wanted. He knew what he wanted, he was already living it. So it was a great lesson. So when we bring that back to financial planning, it's the most common question that I get asked. And the most interesting part is it's not most of my clients that say, how much do I need to retire? It's at the barbecue with friends or strangers that we meet. And they say, oh, Ivan, you're a financial planner. How much do I need to retire? I can't help myself and I go, I don't know. How much do you need to retire? And after the awkward silence, we get to the conversation and says, nobody knows what you want. Okay? There's not a statistical record. There's not a magic article. There's not a Dr. Google that can turn around and tell you what you want for your retirement or what you want for your retirement and how you're going to live. Okay? There's no magic button for you to decide what you want to do. The Mexican villager already knew what he wanted to do. He was doing it. So for retirement planning, we need to have something to aim at. Okay, so my surname is Fletcher. I come from a long line of Fletchers, funnily enough. And the heritage of my family name goes all the way back to England and Scotland. And Fletcher comes from the fletching, which is the pad that stops the bow from slapping on your arm. Okay? If my ancestors were here now, they would say to me, even a good archer needs something to aim at. Okay? So when we want to talk about retirement and how much somebody needs, we need to certainly start with looking and saying what it is that we need personally ourselves. What is it that we want? Okay, and there's really just two simple ways to look at this. There's two lists that everybody can prepare for themselves. Okay? For my retired clients that are already here with me, I apologise tonight, they've probably heard this sermon 3 or 4 times. But it's two simple lists. The first list is the budget for what you need for your lifestyle, day-to-day living. Okay? We already know what half of that is. We know the rates, we know the household budget, we know the electricity bill, Netflix, etc. But when we stop work, some things change. We might eat more at home, we might save some money. All right? We might use more toilet paper because we're now doing our business at home. But there'll be changes. But the big ticket items is, what do you want to do? Where's your passion? What are you going to do with your retirement? If you can work that out, we can help you plan and map that out. Are you going to be travelling the high seas? Are you going to be on the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans in the cruise ships? Or are you going to be travelling the wilderness, free camping your way around Australia? Or are you going to be home growing pumpkins? Like my dad, he grows pumpkins and raspberries. It's the greatest treat at Christmas is to go home and fight over the raspberries. See? Are you going to be eating caviar at the races? Or are you going to be teaching your grandchildren to fish or to bake a cake? Are you going to be going to the Paul McCartney concert? Anybody here go to Paul McCartney this week? There's a couple. It was a great gig. 81 years old. He's doing what he loves. I don't think he needs a financial planner.
Yes, he does, Ivan.
I couldn't get near him. But what do you want for your retirement? Are we going to be going to these gigs? Or are we going to be going to the theatre? Or are we going to the opera? Or are we staying at home and watching Netflix? I don't know what you want, but you do. I don't know what you're going to live for your lifestyle, but you do. And if you put the time and energy into working that through, then we get some traction. So that's your lifestyle budget. You work out and say, how much do I need a year to do the things I do, see the family I want to see and travel? List number 1 complete. List number 2 is what are the big ticket items, and these, I say, can be the game changers. Okay, the biggest one is our family home. In retirement, what happens with a family home? Are we going to sell our big 4 or 5 bedroom house after we become the empty nest syndrome and downsize? Cash some equity in, put it into our retirement kitty, maybe put it into the super? Or are we going to move to glorious 3-bedroom apartment that one of the property guys is going to sell us later tonight, and we need more money. Or, as a lot of clients say to me, Ivan, I'm not leaving here except in a cardboard box. And I go, well, that's fine. You already know the answer, but do you need to do maintenance? Do you need to do some projects on the house? Do you need a nice hot tub jacuzzi? Do we need to spend money on the family home? So they're the big ticket items. You move on to your vehicles. How often are you going to do a car upgrade? A lot of people don't think about this. Are you going to buy caravans and campers, boats, horses? That one's for you, John, if you're in there somewhere. Then you decide what it is, your lump sum events. Are you going to help children out? Are you going to do overseas holidays? These are all personal things. I don't know what you want to do. You know what you want to do. But if we get that list together, then we can work, and then we have these two lists. Then we can start to decide, okay, how much money is needed to get this? We have all the models. We have the help of the likes of Michael, and saying, well, this is what the forecasting tells us we can achieve. We can tell you whether Centrelink comes into the factor. Will you qualify for Centrelink? Yes, you might have to wait till your 80s and then it comes into the equation. But we can put that together and model, but it's got to start with what you want for yourself. And that makes it a little bit easy. So when someone asks me what's the secret to financial planning, I say it's just knowing what you want.
Thanks, Ivan. Now, Ivan's worked at Hudson for 19 years and Mikhail is 20 years. So these two have worked together for a long time. They often act like siblings. They do. They've been around a long time. Now, Mick has a loyal following. Mick's been running Tuesday Chats for anybody who's aware of Mick. They will know her trademark. Some call it a cult following that she has going. Mick probably has the most clients at Hudson and takes the most new referrals on, so you're constantly dealing with new clients. So how do Mick, new client approaches you, wants to have a chat, how do you approach a new client at Hudson? Oh, hopefully.
Hello? Am I on? No? Am I on? Yes. Can I just come back to that now that I've got the mic? The budget, I just want to follow up from Ivan. The budget is the most boring idea, but it is the crux of financial planning. So I would encourage everyone to get out a little spreadsheet. You don't need anything fancy. Spreadsheet, document your income versus expenses.
I'm so opposite. I hate budgets.
But that is the first step. You need to take control over where your money's going. My turn.
Sorry.
I also, before I go on, I just want to say hello to everyone in the room, but especially my clients, because I have, being with Hudson for 20 years, I have had clients that I've been speaking to for millions of years and never actually met them in the flesh. So I've met a few of you tonight and I plan on meeting all of you, which will be very special. And one more shout out, again, because I've got the mic. Shout out to my husband who's not here. We celebrate our 1 year anniversary this month. So thank you. So with Juanita's question about new clients, I get lots of new clients. And one of the questions I'm getting a lot now is about ethical investments. Ethical investments have exploded over the last 5 years, since 2018. They've been around for longer than that, but there was very limited ways you could invest ethically, and there were some barriers, so quite expensive, and some would say you sacrifice the returns investing ethically. Not anymore. So there's a couple, I said that's in the past. There's a couple of different camps with ethical investing. There's ESG and there's impact funds. There's a few others, but they're the two.
ESG, Mick? Can you just...
So ESG means environment, social and governance. It's a much larger universe. So companies that are considered ESG can be unethical to some people, but as long as they're showing that they're improving processes and things like that, they can be included in an ESG model.
There's 588 ethical funds out there at the moment, so that's a lot of open-ended funds to go through. Activist, you could be an activist, it could be an impact fund, it could just be a company that employs a lot of women on their board. So there are a lot of things. So
impact funds. So ESG, larger universe. Companies only need to show that they're improving their practices. Impact funds are a lot more specific. There needs to be proven revenue coming from the companies providing solutions to global issues like climate change, clean energy, sustainable transport.
And some of them will include the Magnificent Seven, which is your Alphabet, Tesla.
Tech.
Yeah, the tech actually.
So Tesla's a good one. Tesla would be considered would be considered in an impact universe because their part of their revenue is trying to change transport and make it more sustainable. A lot of the other tech stocks like Meta, Facebook, that could be included in the ESG universe, but definitely not impact.
I feel like Michael wants to say something over there. He's got the microphone.
ESG investing is it's become trendy because when we're investing, I think society as investors have come to learn that we don't just invest for returns. We can actually invest because we are allocating capital potentially for the greater good, and that's what ESG investing is about. We allocate capital to make a difference on environmental issues. We allocate capital to improve social issues, to, diversity in companies and ensure that they're doing the right thing. Ultimately, I think governance will take over and basically force all companies and what have you to do that. But ESG investing is very much about, allocating capital for the greater good. And I'm with you, Mick, that, there are some good returns to have. That is one of the biggest trends in investing right now, and so where money flows, that's where the returns come as well. So
and do you see too, Michael, with the zero carbon emissions by 2050, a lot of companies that are going to benefit from consulting, and there is a whole lot of government funding going towards these companies that are trying to get to the net zero carbon emissions?
Well, we have to, as a society, if we believe, and pretty much all the science suggests that, climate change and the disaster that's sort of heading is all man-made, therefore, heading towards net zero by faster than 2050 is an absolute necessity. And so, like I said, the governance, the government rules and everything will ultimately take over and force it. So I think that is just a direction that just has to happen. And I'm sure technology will, improve, and hopefully, I'm like probably most people relying on technology, but certainly the capital that we invest is, if we're going to invest in a term deposit as an example, right? Do we invest in a term deposit with a bank that's, funding some bad behaviour? Or do we just take a little bit of a cut potentially on the term deposit and invest with a bank that's actually investing for, better behaviours for our, society and our children and what have you. And that sort of relates to potentially the lower investment returns, because those companies, those banks or whoever that are raising the capital to do bad things, well, they have to pay more to entice. And so you can get the higher returns, but it's for the wrong reasons. But so, we are fundamentally investors, we're capital allocators, so that we can actually make a difference. And that's what ESG investing is about.
And I just want to point out the governance issue. So with any fund, with anything gaining popularity, there's always going to be those that do the wrong thing. And in this space, it's called greenwashing. So there's a lot of companies that will say they're doing something to better themselves, but actually aren't. So that's a big risk in this space, greenwashing.
So you're seeing a lot more interest in this space, though, Mick, with your clients.
Yes,
Mick,
and
you definitely have a younger demographic of client, generally. Like
yes.
You've got.
So it is the younger demographic that are more interested, but it really comes back to ethics is such a subjective thing. What I consider ethical may be completely different to you. So when someone says they want to invest ethically, I've really got to delve into what they actually value, what they want to achieve.
I might actually now ask, let you guys go and leave the couch. I'll thank you, Alistair and Michael, for sitting up here. I want to invite up two more guests tonight. Hudson actually holds an open license. And what that means is that we are like an island. We can recommend any product that we want to. We can not recommend products. I'm an island. Hudson actually pays Michael's bills. Michael doesn't get paid by any of the platforms. It means that we can sort of completely put our clients first and put products first. So we hold our own license, and through our investment committee, we've chosen that we use Colonial, we use Hub24, and we use ART for our industry fund. So we could use any funds that we want to, any platform. When I say a platform, it's sort of like, Ivan's always had a good analogy with platforms. It's almost like choosing Woolworths or Coles. Same products within the shopping centres, but just a different, Coles or Woolworths. So that's Colonial. Colonial is our platform. And Hub24 is another platform that we use because they allow us to have, it's a wrap account. So effectively, it's not just funds. We can have shares, direct equities, we can have private equity. Hub24, ETFs, exactly, ETFs are a huge space at the moment. So I was going to ask these two guys to leave. Thank you, both of you. And I'd like to invite Sam Harrison, State Manager for Colonial, and Jay Collins from Hub24 up to the stage. Hudson has had a love affair of Colonial for 30 years. So Colonial has been part of Hudson for a long time. I came back on just at the start of COVID, actually, as the Managing Director of Hudson. And after much deliberation, I thought Colonial, all right, we'll keep him around. So I'm going to start with Colonial tonight, and I just want Sam to spend a few minutes and tell everybody what he loves about Colonial. I think you've been at Colonial 16 years?
Is this on? Yes, it is, sorry. Almost 16 years. That'll be 16 years next February.
So what do you love about Colonial, Sam?
No, it's a great question. And look, firstly, thanks for the invite tonight, Juanita, and all the team at Hudson, and obviously all their clients. And a lot of the clients in the room here tonight are clients of Colonial First State. So look, thank you for attending. It's great to sort of press the flesh and talk to you all. It's probably the best part of my job, actually, coming out and seeing the end investors that entrust us to manage and look after your money. And I think Ivan used a good analogy before in terms of, what is a investment platform or superannuation fund? And I actually use that same example, I'm like Coles or Woolies. I don't care what you buy in my shop as long as you shop with me. And I think Jay would use a similar analogy, so it's quite a good one to use. So look, the previous two gentlemen that were sitting here before, Michael and Alice, said, look, it's really exciting the world that they operate in, and it's really important in terms of the role they play for anyone here that receives financial advice. And we're sort of that next step down. Like, it's not necessarily really exciting what we do in our world, Jay and I, but we have a really critical part to play, and that's really to make sure that all the assets that the advisors choose to invest on your behalf are managed safely and in accordance with the law and the legislation. So a big part of our job, not our personal jobs, but the teams that sit behind us, is just making sure that we keep up to date with all the changes that the government rolls down the line each year, to make sure that we're compliant and we continue to make pension payments for those that have pensions, or build your superannuation balances that for those of you that have super funds. But sorry, Juanita, back to your question, sort of why do I love Colonial? Well, there's a couple of reasons. It's quite funny, I sort of ended up at Colonial accidentally. I finished uni, I didn't have a job to go to, and I sort of chucked in my CVs everywhere, and Colonial's the one that took me. So I haven't left, and they haven't found a reason to sort of kick me out, so it's been quite good. But in all seriousness, the reason I love the company is, we've got a long history and a proud history in the Australian market in terms of looking after people's retirement savings. And one interesting stat that I always sort of love to tote out is that the federal government is the biggest payer of age pension payments in the country. So some people in the room may receive full or part age pension. The next biggest payer of pension payments in the country is Colonial First State. So we're in a really privileged position in terms of ensuring that every week, every fortnight, every month, year or half year, we make those payments to those clients who depend on that for their livelihoods, and sort of reflecting back to what Ivan said, it's important to know what you want to do with your life, and it's my job to make sure that I can meet those needs. But the other reason I love Colonial is that, we get to do things like this. We get to come and talk to clients and really just understand who you are, what you're about, because, more often than not, the systems that we look at, you're a name and a number on the screen, but it's actually good to come and see here and spend some time with everyone tonight. So, yeah, that's why I love Colonial.
So, Colonial and Hub has actually only come on board at Hudson over the last couple of years since I came back to Hudson. And we looked around at a whole lot of other platforms, and we loved a lot of things about Hub. So I know why we love Hub, but I've got Jay here tonight. I just want Jay to sort of tell everybody why he loves Hub. And also, Hub have some great products. They've got a really great product I love for the younger, professionals in the room. It's in a self-managed super fund space. So I'll handball to Jay, but...
Thank you, Juanita. Make sure this kicks in like yours did, hopefully. Back on? There we go, that's easier. Look, how do I follow that anyway? Such a great talker. So essentially everything that Sam said, we're just that little bit better. That's probably the easiest way I can articulate what we do. No, look, essentially, so I'm Jay Collins and I work with Hub24. So yeah, we're a full wrap platform, and our role essentially is after these guys do all the heavy lifting, all the strategic advice, figure out exactly what's going to help you guys get to where you need to be. We need to support them and give them the tools and the technology and the functionality to actually get you there. So that's essentially what Hub do in a nutshell. The reason why I like working there is I've been there for 4 years, and it was an accident as well. We seem to always just fall into jobs. I met my boss over a coffee and he offered me a role. I was in advice before that, and he offered me it and I took it. And the reason why, he did sell me on the fact that Hub24 are constantly trying to disrupt and innovate the market. So how can we give people, advisors, clients, access or abilities that are not in the market yet to assist them take that next step? Because you've got to do the things today really well, without a doubt. But the places that really are successful, the people who get ahead are the ones who innovate and do something a little bit different and capitalise early. And that's what I see Hub do very, very well. And one of the things as well, which is perfect, you brought it up as well, Juanita, was the SMSF stuff. Now, we all know the market, the SMSF market is huge. It's predominantly ASIC changed their rules, moving it down from $500,000 assumption of what the value should be to 200-ish. But the main reason that was costings behind it was expensive. So we're not touching the actual legitimate SMSF market. When I say legitimate, the current 41 to 55-year-old person with $500,000 in this. We're opening up a brand new market. It's essentially those young professionals or people who want to be extremely engaged with their super, who might only have a smaller amount. They might have $70,000 between, 70,000 each, so 100,000, 140 grand each. How do you get clients access to be more engaged with their super, to be able to take it wherever they want at a much younger age for essentially the same price as would be with any normal super fund they go into? And that's what we've launched. We've launched a service which is end-to-end establishment of an SMSF, auditing guidelines, because let's be honest, with a SMSF, you guys are in control. You stuff up, you get done by the regulator. It's not the product provider, it's not the advisor. You're the trustees of your own super, so it's a very important task to do. We've set up the ability to guide you through all that, have everything done compliantly, as well as have your tax returns done for the same price as would be going into a standard retail offering, whether it was with Sam, myself, Art, anything like that. It's not to encroach on standard SMSF accountants' business. This is for the ones they wouldn't take. So it's a really exciting offering, something we can definitely talk more about, but it's a market that's not even opened yet.
No, it's great. It's one of the things I love about Hub is the innovation that comes through Hub. We've got so many people to get through tonight. I just wanted everyone to put a face to Colonial and Hub. Meet these guys through the night if you want to. Nick Windsor, where's Nick? Nick, show your face, Nick. Nick's from Art. So if anybody's got Art, so Art is Q Super and Sun Super. Nick is my Art rep tonight, so any hard-hitting questions, get Nick if you've got Q Super or Sun Super. He's your man. I'll get these guys to leave the couch. Thank you, both of you. Find them if you've got any questions through the night. My final guest for this couch tonight is the beautiful Angela from Pilot Accountants and Loanne from YHC Lawyers. I've got these two up tonight because advisors really collaborate with accountants and estate planners. Our jobs sort of overlap in a lot of ways. And Angela is also Hudson's personal accountant and my accountant, so this girl will take my calls on a Sunday after hours. Honestly, she's got my back 100%, but she also does with our clients. We've been working with both of these girls over the last 3 years now, and we share a lot of clients together. And Angela, I'm gonna start with you tonight. I'm gonna pretend we're at a barbecue. I think we were on this tangent before, and I'm gonna go, hey Ange, got any free tax advice for me?
And I cringe.
Yes, I knew you would. No, seriously, we all do work. I just want to sort of talk about how we work in together and how our roles overlap. I know years ago we were able to do a lot more, like your role's been defined a lot lately as well. So I'm going to handball.
So thank you for my introduction and that great question, which does actually come up from time to time at social events. Can people hear me? Does this actually... Hello? Okay, so my response to your question, there is no good tax advice. That is free tax advice.
Come on, Ange.
You get what you pay for. What you need is quality advice from a quality accountant. Now,
Welcome, Angela.
What is a quality accountant? All accountants help their clients with tax minimisation, but a quality accountant goes far more. A quality accountant will do out-of-box strategies for their clients. They will not copy what they have previously done for another client. They will offer a tailored solution for their clients. A quality accountant will also help clients with asset protection, and a quality accountant will also ensure that tax lodgements are done accurately in accordance with the tax law. So to go a little bit further on that response, I'll break it up into two areas. The first will be asset protection, and the second will be mitigating against ATO audit risk. So the first one. We work so hard for our cash. In fact, I'm sure every single one of you really love your jobs, and if you could, you would have retired by now. I know I would have. So it's important that you want to protect your wealth. A quality accountant will ensure that your assets are protected, because there are those adverse events that happen, and isn't it sad if you suffer a financial loss because your accountant was only chasing those extra few deductions to increase a refund, as opposed to considering other matters at hand. The second one is mitigating ATO audit risk. So what I mean by that is, in Australia, we have a self-assessment system for tax. It is you who is responsible for what you lodge in your tax return. You may use an accountant to help you prepare your tax return, but the tax office comes after you, not the accountant. So rather than finding an accountant who is more fixated on chasing those deductions to increase a refund or reduce a tax payment, you need to be comfortable with your accountant to make sure that what you are lodging with the tax office is accurate. I hate to admit this, but the tax office every year surprises me. They become more and more intelligent with what they know about every single one of you in this room. So years ago, they had access to bank accounts, so they knew what income you earned and what expenses you were incurred. But they're much more savvy now. They understand and they have access to various government portals. So you sell a property, they know about it. You sell a car, they know about it. But they also have ATO officers who are going through social media and they're watching what you have actually posted on social media and then seeing whether the information in your tax return actually paints the same story. And what happens if it doesn't? It will trigger a flag. And so then what the ATO does is they will contact either the accountant or the taxpayer and ask questions. If they don't like the questions, the answers that they get, they go further. They will move that to a review and then potentially an audit. Now, on the off chance that they are not happy with the information you've told them about the with what they're investigating and they don't agree with that it should have been in your tax return, whether you have omitted income or increased deductions, you will suffer a financial loss. And the loss is more than just paying back the tax benefit you've received. You will also be cut with penalties. Now, those penalties are big. Those penalties are based on the type of error. It's a sliding scale. So if your penalty was based on an honest mistake, you will still get a penalty, but it's not as big as if the error was actually done deliberate. Now, those penalties are material and quite significant. And the double sting is, not only is it payable to the taxation office, but it's also non-tax deductible. And then we have interest on that. And the interest on your payment that you have to pay to the taxation office has a very high interest rate, north of 10%. So those taxpayers that are more hunting those quick dollars rather than making sure you stay under the radar with the taxation office, making sure that you are protecting your wealth, are better, there's no risk. It's better than on the flip side. So I'm here tonight with Christy Baxter, who is back there, who isn't even listening to this presentation. Look at her. There she is. She's also a partner at Pilot with me. And I'm also here with Cherie Phillips. Is Cherie here? Oh yeah, there she is. She's listening. I just wasn't watching her because I need glasses. She's a senior accountant and Pilot. And we also have Daniel Gill. He's a partner here and he's in the corporate advisory team. We're quality accountants. And but the biggest takeaway I would say here is you need to have a good quality team around you. You need not only a quality accountant, but you need a quality financial advisor. This is where Hudson comes in. Yeah, that's you, Mick. That's you. Now, personally, I'm fiercely protective of my personal brand, and I go far and beyond for my clients. And I know Hudson does exactly the same for their clients. We all, Christy and I, Cherie, Daniel, we have worked with Ivan. We have worked with Mick. We've worked with Melissa and Chris and really the entire Hudson team. I'm not going to name everyone because you should be on this couch being grilled by Juanita. And so I'm just doing the ones that are in eyesight right now. But it's important to have a team of quality advisors who are protecting you. And I call it the triangle of service. You need quality accountants and advisors who work together to ensure that you are always looked after from a tax minimisation, but your assets are protected and you stay clear of doing anything dodgy with the taxation office. And that's it.
Cash flow is king. And part of what we do when we do strategies is look to see you know, is it an increase in income that you could possibly get? Is it working 3 jobs, or is it minimising your tax? Cash flow is king when it comes to investing. So we do collaborate a lot with Angela and with accountants. You know, we have clients who've got their own accountants, and we're happy to collaborate with them. We've just done a lot of work over the last couple of years with Angela. Loanne, estate planning. I know this is, Angela, you're bringing me down before. I was scared. We were like bringing the tax man, and now I'm going to talk about celestial passing. Now we've got estate plan. This couch over here. We need to sort of, no, just kidding. Loanne has been working with us for a couple of years as well. I think with in Australia, there's no inheritance tax. There is a sneaky tax that can come into play if you die with superannuation and you're leaving it to children who are over the age of 18. There is a tax that can come into play with that. And this is where collaboration with advisors and your estate planner can come into play, because there are also strategies that we can use to negate this tax, or at least minimise the tax that might be payable. So part of a retirement plan or any sort of plan will look at your estate planning, and Loanne has worked now with the advisors for a few years, as well as, actually, I'm going to introduce another lawyer as well, but I'm going to talk to Loanne first, because Mick actually has worked a lot with Loanne lately. I'm going to throw this to you for questioning, Mick, about Loanne, but over to you, Mick.
Loanne?
Yep.
Loanne. Estate planning is probably the least sexy of the financial planning realm.
I disagree.
To those uneducated. But it is super important. I mean, at least 50% of this audience would be blended families. Might be some psychotic ex in the background who is waiting in the wings. Another thing that I've found is the prevalence of children who are neurodiverse, which I think comes into play when talking about estate planning. So I've referred many clients to Loanne, from nuclear families through to blended with everything in between. And likewise, you've referred back to me clients who didn't even know they needed financial planning advice. So collaboration rules.
Yeah, if you thought you were depressed before, now we're going to talk about death and incapacity. I do think it's a very interesting area of law. I'll be honest, when I was getting my first job and they said you'll be doing wills and estates, I thought, oh great, dead people. But it's not about dead people, it's about alive people, and what keeps them up at night, what worries them. An effective estate plan is one where you've looked after yourself, but you've looked after the well-being of the people that you love. And what could be more interesting than that? So when we talk about an effective estate plan, we are talking about a will and an enduring power of attorney and an advance health directive. But what we're really talking about is advice and strategy to make sure that you're looked after. And my clients go from age 18 to 95. And the things that worry people and the things that keep them up at night, there are many common themes. Everybody here, if you haven't got a will, I want you to go home tomorrow and look at yourself, but then also you need to get something sorted. For those that do have a will, you're going to sit there thinking, I am sorted. But what I want you to do is I want you to have a look at the copy of the will that you have and look to see who you've appointed as an executor. The executor's role is to arrange your funeral, but also to deal with your financial advisors and your accountants if anything happens to you. And it's a job, and the job that they have to do is a paperwork-driven job. You need a proactive person, someone who's 100% trustworthy. It's not how much you love someone, it's not in order of age of children, it's someone who can carry out that role. And that role is to collaborate with your financial advisors and your accountants to collect in your assets, pay your debts and taxes, and distribute your estate in accordance with your will. So it's a position of trust. So when you go back and have a look at your will, I want you to make sure that you're comfortable with the people that you've appointed. I want you to have at least 2 or 3 people in order. Lawyers are pretty depressing. We keep saying, what if that person falls off the perch? What if that person loses capacity? But we'd want to build in these layers. We want to future-proof as much as possible. And then the other reason you make a will is to control things. Ruling from the grave is fantastic. And we want to make sure that all your hard work, your investments, your savings, your sacrifices, at the end of the day, who does it go to? You want it to go to the right people. And I sit down with couples every day, and we talk about, those that have children, we talk about, do we divide it equally between the number of children that you have, or do we reward effort? And that's pretty interesting, isn't it? And there's no right or wrong to that, but there's a discussion. And when there's a blended family, it's even more interesting because we think about, is it really two families, or is it the number of individuals? Do we think about the financial contribution that each partner brought to the marriage? Sometimes I'm sitting down with people and they're saying out loud for the first time how they truly feel about each other's children, and how they worry that if their partner loses capacity or passes away, that they might be pushed out. So it is very interesting. It's a good thing my other degree is psychology. The other thing that I'm starting to see a lot of, and I know Mick sees this too, and Ivan, is the bank of mum and dad, the biggest unregulated bank of Australia. And the fact that parents are helping their children mostly with getting into property, and how do we deal with that? So if you're sitting there and you've given a large sum of money to your children, the first thing we've got to talk about is it a loan or is it a gift? The parents always think it's a loan, the kids always think it's a gift. Never seems to be the other way around. If you're sitting there and you think that you've given or loaned a large sum of money to the kids and the other kids don't know about it, you're kidding yourself. If you think that they know about it but they don't mind, you're also kidding yourself. And it's all fine for you, but people like the financial advisors and the accountants and the lawyers, we're the ones that have to sort it out after you're gone. And it's very interesting because I once had a situation where the estate was divided between two brothers, and I thought, this is the easiest job I've ever had. Mum's divided the estate equally between you. And one of them said to his brother, I know that Mum paid for your kitchen renovation and you chose all the Miele products. I've gone and got it valued and you owe me $26,000. And the other brother said, Mum paid for your divorce fees and she's put your boys through private school, you owe me money. And it was on. We had to get forensic accountants involved. It was just a complete mess. So when back in the day, you used to go to one lawyer who did your will and your conveyance and your divorce and your speeding ticket. It's all different now. Estate planning is specialised, and what it is it's a financial health check. That's why we collaborate with financial advisors and accountants. We check the superannuation nominations. We check your life insurance nominations. We run current title searches. Some of the things that you think you own are actually owned by companies and trusts, and they're dealt with separately. And we need to bring out all the, we bring out all the stories. We find out where the money's gone, who's got what, how do we equalise? Do we have to equalise in the will? Can we equalise while you're alive? Well, that needs financial advice, because you need to make sure that if you're going to equalise while you're alive, you've got enough money to go on for the rest of your life. We don't know the time and we don't know when, so we need to make sure that that's in line with the strategy. So be prepared when you see your next estate planning lawyer to just spill your guts out and tell them everything. I don't want people sitting there going, gee, I really should tell Luann about my illegitimate child, but it's going to add 40 minutes, let's not tell her. No, we need to know everything, because contesting wills is something that's just happening more and more. And as the economic times get tougher, that's when we see more people contesting wills. I don't have much time to speak, but I do want to give you a public service announcement. And that public service announcement is that Christmas is coming and you need to behave. And I'm telling you that because after every Christmas, Easter and Mother's Day, I get a spike of inquiries of people wanting to disinherit their children. So if you get an invitation for Christmas and you can't guarantee your behaviour or your partner's behaviour, do not go. Send an expensive bottle of champagne with a handwritten card that's been signed by you in pen. Take a photo of the card before you send it. But in all seriousness, the new year is a time where people spend a lot of time thinking about their relationships, so please be on good behaviour.
Thanks, Luann. We've got so many clients. I think we've got at Hudson about 3,000 active clients all around Australia. And so we also use Clayton from Empire Legal. There's an Empire Legal team here. Clayton and the team from Empire Legal are up the front. They're amazing. I love these guys as well. They also do wills. They specialise more in mums and dad sort of basic wills. But Clayton and his team are great, and we've been using them a lot this year. And we've got so many clients to do wills. So many clients don't have wills. It's quite frightening, actually, or they haven't looked at their will for a long time. So we've got if you want to talk questions, Loanne, Clayton are here tonight, and Angela. But this ends our first session, our first couch session. I'm just going to get Rainforest Rescue, my Byron Bay crew. Come on up, guys. I'm going to get them up. They're going to finish off. We're going to have a break after they talk for half an hour before I bring up finance and the property guys. So thank you to Loanne and Angela, Ivan, Mick. You guys are awesome. Thank you. And Brandon, BB, Rainforest Rescue. Welcome to our stage. It's all yours.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. That was far more interesting than I expected, and I learned a lot. I learned that as far as Ivan's story goes, I'm actually the Mexican guy. And I feel very, very lucky to get to do what I do. I'm also really stoked to be with so many investors and business people because you are astute, you're thoughtful, you don't jump into things without making sure it's going to be a good risk. We have a great investment opportunity for you here today. It's true, it's true. And honestly, you guys all love Hudson Financial, and Hudson is giving you great advice, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Hudson. Right.
Yes.
And Hudson invests in Rainforest Rescue. So just let that sit with you for a second. So, this is a very small screen, so I'll just read every single slide. I have 400 slides to go through tonight, so I'll try to get through it really quick. Rainforest Rescue, yay! We strive for a greener and better future for everyone, which goes back to what Mick was talking about with the SDGs. Very cool. Please, next slide. Thank you. This is Kristen. She's fantastic. If anybody wants to talk about investing in Rainforest Rescue as a business, this is your woman right here. So, yes, together with Hudson Financial, we have bought unprotected forest and replanted forest in 3 years of partnership. It's been an equivalent of 1,724 rainforest trees. Thank you so much, Hudson Financial. And that equates to almost 3,500 square meters of threatened rainforest. And when we say threatened rainforest, well, we'll get into that in a little bit. But just to know, if it weren't for Hudson and the other business partners that Rainforest Rescue has, we would not be achieving at the level we are. And we'll talk a little bit about how we're doing in terms of the future that we all care about. So why bother? We focus on the Daintree. Everybody here know what the Daintree is? Daintree Rainforest? Pretty cool place. It's Australia's largest rainforest. It's Australia's most biodiverse rainforest. And it's the world's oldest rainforest, made in Australia. A lot of people are comfortable, conservatively, saying that the Daintree is 135 million years old. I'm a big fan of the Amazon. I used to work there. 65, 70 million years. So the Daintree is ancient, biodiverse, and Australia's, and it's our largest. It also holds incredible biodiversity. I'm going to read this for you. I won't read all the slides, I promise. 65% of Australia's fern species, 60% of our butterfly species, 40% of our birds, 35% of our mammals, 30% of our orchids, 29% of our frogs, my favorites, and 20% of our reptiles. So the Daintree is an incredible repository of life and diverse life. It's also an amazing place where we get to work with a 46,000-year-old culture. And the Eastern Guguyalanji people have been they've been living in harmony in the Daintree and the Daintree region for 46,000 years. And to get to work with these people is an incredible honor and a constant learning process. I don't know if anybody here has had the opportunity to work with Australian Indigenous peoples, First Peoples. Very easy to get it wrong. very easy to make a misstep, wrong word, whoa, everybody's going through cultural awareness training. And we have done that, but it's worth it. Our commitment to the Yalanji folk through their Aboriginal corporation, the representative Aboriginal corporation, Jabalbina Yalanji Aboriginal Corporation, has allowed us to create a relationship that is providing traineeships for Indigenous Australians. And we have trained 4 horticulturalists, 1 land restorer, and we secured the funding to do that, which was pretty cool. And we, next week, are handing over our original nursery. So Rainforest Rescue, which we'll talk about a little bit more, we buy and protect land, and we restore land. And to restore land, you gotta grow trees. And we grow over 200 species. Coolest job in the world, seed collector in the Daintree. So we are actually just finished building a new nursery. We've talked about the future for everybody, making it a better future for all. Is this sound okay? I feel like it's screeching. We okay? All right. We had a little nursery, and the little nursery that could 12,000 trees a year, and we weren't doing significant restoration. And a few years ago, somebody suggested that the planet was in trouble. The planet is burning, they said. We need to plant more trees. So we're giving our old nursery back, well, gifting it to the Yalanji, and we have built a huge new nursery that's doing 150,000 trees a year, and that's going to be scaling up over the next couple of years. And that has allowed us to achieve certain conservation outcomes, not just creating nature refuges from devastated old oil palm plantations owned by Christopher Skase. Everybody remembers Christopher Skase, right? Is it okay for me to giggle a little bit when I talk about him? All right. Anyway, we took his old oil palm plantation, turned it into a rainforest again, and handed it back and gave it a new name. They actually, the Yalanji granted it a name, Gurangi Bubu, Cassowary Land. And then over here is a picture of Michael, Ambrose, Marine, our nursery manager. You've got Marianne and Loretta, and we taught them all horticulture. Next, thank you. And through our work, we've planted 340,000 almost trees, 43 rainforest properties saved up in the Daintree. That equals almost 2 million square meters of ancient, intact Daintree habitat protected forever. 31 of those 43 properties now have nature refuge designations, and we're always working on getting those set up. And we've been doing it for 24 years. In fact, our 25th anniversary is coming up in March. And thank you. I had nothing to do with it. You want me to move over this way? Sorry. Oh, sorry, guys. Hi. Okay. Oh, hi, you guys. Oh, hi, Mick. I just can't read it from over here. Okay, so we do a lot of restoration. And as I said, hey, planet's burning, we can do better, we can do more. We're an organization on a mission to protect rainforests forever, and we get to do some reconciliation, and we get to reduce carbon in the atmosphere, and we get to increase biodiversity and rich habitat. And that's how we do it, through restoration. Actually, all of it is through hand-collected seeds. And we have 2 people who get to spend their lives, like the Mexican guy, doing what they love, which is collecting seeds in a beautiful rainforest context. That's a picture of our new nursery. Isn't it beautiful? I often say, hey, would you like to see a picture of my new nursery? That's kind of where we're at. And it is fantastic. It started operating earlier this year, and it's literally been flying while building the plane. We've produced this year over 30,000 trees, and that is almost 3 times what we were doing last year. So that's progress, but it's just getting started. I thought you guys would appreciate a graph. I worked really hard on this. This talks about trees propagated and planted. And the important bit here, and it's always the bit at the end that everybody's interested in. Oh, look, there wasn't a lot happening. Oh, that's nice. There's some trees being propagated and planted, and whoa, 2020, 2021, it's going crazy because there's no time to waste, and that's where our commitment is. This is a picture of our new nursery. That's Marine, our nursery manager, who is incredible and so committed and fantastic. We're all about taking seeds in an ethical way. We make sure that there's always plenty of seeds for food for the animals and to make sure that the trees can continue to self-propagate. And I can just go back a second. Go the other one. And we're really into genetic diversity. We make sure that when we're doing propagation, we're doing it with different trees, making sure that everybody's making nice and we're getting really strong, resilient trees as an output. Thank you. Another fabulous graph. This is the projection graph. Everybody here likes projections when they're positive, right? All right, so just note that here we're doing great, and over the next 3 years, it's gonna go bananas. What? Oh, okay. I always look to Mary Beth, but she's literally been by my side since I started at Rainforest Rescue 5 years ago, and we wouldn't be where we are without you. Okay, and here's a wonderful comparison image. Look at, that's a really empty, denuded space, and oh, there's some beautiful trees and it's greening up. And this is over 8 years, and now it's absolutely beautiful. This is an ex-sugarcane field. There are plenty of different types of land you can restore. I don't recommend doing a sugarcane field unless you have to. Full of weeds, terrible soil quality, very challenging, but how satisfying to see that turn into a rainforest again. And now cassowaries are coming back. There was a tree kangaroo. Very cool. Yay, woo! Yeah, I love those. You guys are a great crowd. I'll be here all week. And then in terms of our rescues, as I mentioned earlier, we've done 43 properties. We've got one in Tasmania, and that's another story. And that's equivalent to almost 2 million square meters of protected rainforest. We gave a couple back to national parks, and we're currently gunning for 2 more. We can talk about that later. And just so you can see another terrific graph, very impressive. Some things happening down here over time, and then boom. Wow, how many properties did you guys rescue in 2023? 5 by the end of this year. Last year we did 2, the year before we did 3. We've never done 5, and we've certainly never done 27 hectares in 1 year, which is incredible. It's increasing our Daintree portfolio of protected properties by 30% in 1 year. 30%, right? There's a good number. Yes, and those are beautiful fan palms. They live for hundreds of years, and that is on one of the properties we just rescued. Everybody here has got up close and personal with a cassowary, right? Cuddly, friendly, really hard to keep them away. Love marshmallows. No, they don't. And they are beautiful. When you're in the Daintree, it's one of the ways that you feel like you've actually stepped into Jurassic Park, and there are living dinosaurs around you. You know, in the Daintree, you'll find plants that only exist in the fossil record in other parts of the world, but are still evolving in the Daintree. And that other cute critter was a tree kangaroo. Bennett's tree kangaroo only exists in the Daintree. Another good reason to protect it. They are so cute and a little intimidating, very strong. And just so you know what we're working on now, we're increasing our seedling production. As I mentioned, hit 30,000 or so this year, heading up to 150,000 a year in the next 3 years. And we will have done over 1 million trees in this decade. 1 million trees, woo! It's awesome. And of course, we're also working on, as I mentioned, 2 more rescues. One is a beautiful 4-hectare property that is the equivalent of 10 acres. And it's right on the beach at Cape Trib. It's our first beachfront property. What's most important is that it's one of those filtering properties that helps provide clean water for the Great Barrier Reef. And in fact, one of the cool things about the Daintree I didn't mention is it's the only place in the world where you find 2 World Heritage areas actually connected to each other. And they have a beautiful relationship. The reef provides chemicals that seed the atmosphere. More rain comes down into the rainforest. And then the rainforest provides beautiful clean water for the reef. And we've got 2 new restoration sites lined up. We're currently working on 2. There was that wonderful ex-sugarcane. Then there's another one that's ex-pasture in the top of the Daintree River Valley. And then we're going to do an airstrip. A lot of gravel. That'll be challenging. And then we're also doing a lot of really interesting work around data capture and analysis, finding out what the most efficient ways to perform restoration are, particularly with different soil types in different contexts. Working with JCU, very cool, that's James Cook University. And of course, we're celebrating 25 years. All right, opportunities. rescue and protect the unprotected Daintree. This is something everybody can be involved in. Restoration of rare and threatened habitat. Yes, you can support restoration of this incredible habitat. And then propagation and nursery operations. We have 5 people working in our nursery. We have 4 people working on the land. When I started here 5 years ago, we had 1 dude 2 days a week working on the land, and we had 1 person working in the old nursery 2 days a week. So we're growing, because it's time to grow. And those of you who are interested in investing alongside your trusted financial advisor, Hudson, who knows a good deal when they see it, we have a lot of different ways to get involved. You can go through the tiered program, different levels. It gets you different cool things you can put on your website and in your email signatures and show the world how they too can care, and it's good for your company's profile if you're not greenwashing, but nobody here would do that. Oh, could you just go back to that other slide, please? And then we've got a percentage for the rainforest. We have the 1% for the rainforest program. That's 1% of profits. How many companies do we have doing that? 11? 11 properties currently doing 1% of their profits for the rainforest. And then we've got Canopy Club. And Canopy Club is whatever you want to contribute and be a part of Rainforest Rescue family of companies. Thank you. Did I miss anything there? All right. One thing that I think you guys will really appreciate, I feel like I should sit on the couch. So we talk about SDGs. We talk about the United Nations Decade of Restoration. We talk about the Nature Repair Bill that the government's kicked through. And everybody knows about carbon credits. Well, everybody knows carbon credits exist. It's a pretty complicated, strange space. A lot of bad players out there. Fortunately, the market is maturing, and a lot of the bad actors are being weeded out, and new policies and practices are being put in place to make sure that it's actual carbon that's being sequestered that you can invest in. There's also biodiversity credits. So the next step from carbon is, what about the stuff that actually produces life on Earth? How can we invest in that, and why would we? But as Mick was referring to, and Mike was talking about, it's the right thing to do. And as a business, more and more, it's going to be a requirement that part of what your business is doing is giving back to the greater good. And it feels good to be a part of the solution to these terrible challenges we're facing. That emerging economy is something that we're investing in with our new nursery. They said, what are you going to do with all the trees? You can't plant 150,000 trees a year. I said, well, fortunately, the Wet Tropics Management Authority and Terrain NRM are creating the Restoration Alliance. And they're going to bring all the restoration professionals together who are desperate for trees, and they're starting to order trees now. So this new economy supported by reef credits, cassowary credits, wildlife or nature credits, and the Land Restoration Fund and the Queensland government, there are more coming. So there will be more reasons for people to perform quality restoration with ecosystem benefits, because there will be real financial returns. And if you want to talk about that and actually what kind of money's involved, come see me or get in touch, because it's really interesting. And we've kind of bet the farm on it. Something for you data folk, we've got a new carbon measurement project, very fascinating stuff with a very charismatic JCU professor. That's Dr. Alex Cheeseman. And we love him. And we've been doing some really interesting cutting edge work, including using LiDAR systems to map the growth, the speciation, the diversity, and the actual carbon sequestration of a forest using lasers. And then some other things we're doing, and I chose a bad picture for this because it's all in white text, so trust me when I say we're doing data capture and analysis, soil recovery and microbiology studies and programs, and restoration density methodologies. What's the most efficient way to restore a rainforest? How do you do that? We're pretty good at it, but we want to be great at it. So we're going to lead the way, and we're working with partners to make sure that all boats rise. Ultimately, more trees, more habitat. Oh, and that's us. That used to just, it literally used to be 5 people when I got here 5 years ago. And that's one of our annual community tree plantings. And if anybody is free on May 18th, can everybody just check your calendars real quick? May 18th, annual community tree planting. This year, I predict we are going to plant 5,000 trees. Our record's 3,300. Yes, thank you. Here's $5. Huh? Yes, and we're going to have more than 200 people this year. Last year we had 150. So we're really committed to growth. As I showed you with my fabulous graphs, we're actually making great headway. We've increased our financial position 20% every year. Is a 20% return good? That's all right, right? For a nonprofit organization? Yeah, okay. Yeah, and now, before you all swamp me with questions, we have a little something for the people seated in these chairs, but only 5 of you. Oh, wait, and over there. Those of you who are sitting on a chair, please reach under your chair and see if there is something taped to the bottom of the chair. No, it's okay. You can come see me later if you didn't get one. Oh, there's 1, 2, there's 3 more out there. Check your seats. Look under your seat. And if you're not sitting in the chair and you check under it and you get it, you win. Oh, so yes, Rainforest Rescue t-shirts. And there's new stock coming in 2 weeks. Congratulations to the other. So anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 1 more out there. 1 more out there. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, well, whoever finds that magic golden ticket gets a fantastic Rainforest Rescue t-shirt. Does anybody have any questions before I jump off the stage? Thank you so much for your attention. You've been a great audience. Like I said, I'll be here all week. Right on. Thank you, Juanita. And look, I want to put a big round of applause for Juanita. Thank you so much for supporting Rainforest Rescue, and thank you so much for bringing us here tonight.
Thank you for being here. I'm very grateful for you coming up from Byron. I love what you guys do.
Thank you.